A young boy discovers a demonic book that unleashes an evil spirit on his family. Strap in, movie enthusiasts. It's recap time. Today we will be recapping the movie Evil Dead Rise from the year 2023, which will give you a shiver with its old-school jump scares. Hope you enjoy the video, so let's start. The film opens with a rude couple taking care of a possessed girl named Jessica in an isolated cabin in the woods. After putting Jessica on sedatives, Caleb shows up on the river dock to scare his girl. The girl, despite being arrogant, walks away from the dock to check up on Jessica after hearing she's been put on sedatives. Inside the cabin, she uses inappropriate slurs while referring to Jessica and commands her to wake up within half an hour or else she'll run away. As the girl sits on a chair by Jessica's bedside and continues silently reading her book, Jessica sits up straight and starts reciting the lines from the book. The girl gets freaked out as Jessica's pitch slowly turns masculine and demonic. When she starts screaming in fear, Jessica falls from the bed and dies of a seizure. When the girl comes closer to Jessica to check her heartbeat, Jessica reawakens and pulls the girl's scalp out of her head with her bare hands. The ripped scalp girl goes out to seek Caleb's help, but only freaks him out. At the same time, Jessica shows up and jumps into the river. The girl tries to stop Caleb from helping Jessica, but Caleb jumps after Jessica, hoping to rescue her. Bubbles start forming in the river, and Caleb's decapitated head is thrown on the dock near the girl's feet. As she relentlessly screams, the possessed Jessica rises from the water. The scenes are then cut to a day earlier, when a struggling guitar tech named Beth is seen taking a pregnancy test in a public bathroom. Before the results can be shown, the scene shifts to Beth's sister, Ellie's, home. Ellie is currently living in a rusty apartment building along with her children, Danny, Bridget, and Cassie, a toddler. Beth shows up unannounced at Ellie's place and finds out the building is about to be demolished in a month, and Ellie has nowhere else to be. Beth pities Ellie, stating that she has lived her entire married life in this apartment with her husband. Ellie makes a cold face upon hearing her husband's name, but Beth doesn't notice. At the dinner table, while Beth gives everyone presents, she takes out one for their father, not knowing he's left them and Ellie. Ellie becomes disturbed, so she sends her kids away to grab pizza and drinks in her car. As the kids leave, Beth becomes disheartened, complaining that Ellie never called her for her help. Ellie becomes disappointed and reminds Beth that she called her twice, but Beth never responded to her. Moments later, the sisters sit together and clear out their misunderstandings. On the other hand, the kids return to their building with the pizzas and drinks. As they get to the underground garage, a very high-magnitude earthquake occurs, cracking the ground and opening up a giant hole. When Danny goes closer to the hole, he is exposed to the century-old bank setup and a rusty vault. He jumps down the hole with his phone's flashlight and takes a look around. Bridget keeps telling him to get out, as it can be dangerous down there. Before getting out of there, Danny steals a very mysterious book and a record. Meanwhile, Ellie and Beth panic upstairs and seek their neighbors' help as they fail to call the kids on their phones. A young man named Gab shows up and offers Ellie a car ride to search for her kids, but the kids show up in the elevator. Ellie hugs the kids and imposes a curfew on them for the night. Danny finds the stolen items rare and wishes to sell them to financially help his mother out, but Bridget opposes his views and tells him to place the items back where he stole them from as soon as the curfew goes down. Meanwhile, Beth helps Cassie overcome her fears and take a bath. When Bridget leaves, Danny opens the book and plays the stolen record on his record player. The recording plays the voice of a priest from 1923 who reveals the decoding of the Book of Death to find out the meaning behind the encoded chants and incantations that are drawn with human flesh and blood. All of a sudden, the priest starts chanting a spell, claiming to resurrect the dead with the chant. When Danny becomes scared of the priest's voice that keeps getting dense and acoustic, he tries to stop the recording, but it doesn't. In the meantime, Ellie is in the building's hallway with a box of belongings that she's moving out of her apartment. A strong blow of wind pushes her back inside the elevator, where the voices start speaking to her. When Ellie senses the demonic presence around her, she tries to escape, but the hanging ropes from the elevator roof get enchanted and strangle every joint in Ellie's body. As she mercilessly screams, the ropes slowly tighten up and break every bone in her body. The resurrection spell starts to show signs of evil, and the power circuit dies in Ellie's apartment, leaving the kids and Beth baffled. Beth goes to check up on Ellie but finds her bed empty. Soon, Ellie shows up with her now twigged bones and goes straight into the kitchen. She starts smashing eggs on a heated pan and tells of a horrifying dream in which she's enjoying cutting open her family. Much to everyone's dread, she turns around and gives them a glimpse of her now pale and bruised skin. Simultaneously, she gets on all fours and covers the entire floor with her vomit. From deep within, Ellie speaks to Beth for the last time before passing out, begging her not to let evil hurt her kids. Beth and Danny team up to take Ellie to the doctor. As they drag her unconscious body out in the hallway, the elevator door closes shut, and the stairs vanish in the earthquake. Ellie's mouth foams up, and she dies, leaving Beth clueless about what to do next. Beth gathers Gab and another old man from the neighborhood, who help Beth put Ellie's corpse in her bed until they find a way to exit the building. Gab and the old man decide to use the old man's tools to open the elevator doors, so they leave Beth alone. Beth sits by Ellie's corpse and sorrowfully expresses how she was never as good as her. Weirdly, Beth's phone plays Ellie's voice, which cries about Ellie being burned alive. The phone gets cracked, leaving Beth's ground shaken. At the same time, Ellie reawakens, burning up. The kids also show up and help Beth put Ellie in the bathtub as her body's burning up. Now gone horrible and rotten, the possessed Ellie climbs on the walls and screams that tremble the entire apartment. She falls down in the tub and comes out of it to attack the kids. Beth takes them away, so the demon comes after them. The possessed Ellie comes out of the bathroom and stabs Beth's hand with a broken glass since she doesn't run away from her, assuming her sister is still somewhere trapped in there. Bridget shows up and diverts her demonic mother's attention, but she gets cut by a sharp tool by the demon. Danny shows up and smacks the demon to save Bridget. While the demon picks its next victim from the kids, Gab shows up at the door. The demon attacks Gab and pokes his eyeball out with its mouth. This allows Beth to lock the door and place a cabinet in front of the door. Locked outside, the demon obliterates Gab and his kids. The old neighbor shows up with his shotgun and tries to take the demon down, but the demon doesn't get affected, resulting in the old man's obliteration. Inside the house, Bridget picks a fight with Danny, blaming his stolen book and vinyl for everything that's happening now. Beth disperses their fight and asks Danny to show her the Book of the Dead. Bridget goes to the kitchen to aid her wound, only to find a horrifying infection that's spreading fast. Left alone, Cassie approaches the peephole in the door, from which the demon inclines Cassie to open the door. Assuming her mother is getting better, Cassie opens the lock only to be choked by the demon. Beth and Danny show up, pull Cassie away, and lock the door again. Moments after this, Beth goes to check up on Bridget and finds her sitting like a frog on the kitchen counters. Beth's grounds are shaken to realize Bridget's been turned as well. Now turned into a demon, Bridget takes a grater and grates Beth's calf with it when she attempts to run away. Beth uses pans and pots to smack Bridget and get her off of her. When Danny shows up to see what's happening, Bridget attacks him and runs after him. She chases Danny to his room, where Cassie unintentionally pokes a pointy stick from one end of her mouth to the back of her head. Bridget gets knocked out, which allows Danny to tie her up to the bed in case she reawakens like his mother. Now crying and admitting everything was his fault, he gets Beth's help to fix the vinyl so she can hear the recordings and see if there's a solution to put an end to this insanity. Beth locks the kids out of the room and puts on headphones to listen to the tape. On the contrary, the demon uses the vent to infiltrate the house. As Beth listens to the priest confessing to failing to obliterate his possessed priests using every possible method, the demon crawls out of the vent right behind Beth and attacks her. Beth jabs a knife in her face and runs away to save Danny and Cassie, who have now been overshadowed by the possessed Bridget. Bridget stabs Danny and pukes a bucket full of blood on his face, which turns him into a demon as well. Cassie hides under the couch and watches the possessed Ellie attack Beth. so she slides a pair of scissors to Beth, which Beth uses to attack Ellie. This gives them enough time to run outside and escape through the fire. Escape. When Ellie comes out to attack them, Beth picks up the dead man's shotgun and severs her limbs with each shot. Things get worse as Ellie awakens all the dead people she had attacked earlier and merges with them to create a horrifying octopus-like demon. Beth takes Cassie into the elevator, where they find Ellie's car keys. Unfortunately, blood starts seeping into the elevator from every crack present in it. The demon uses the vent to infiltrate the elevator, but the blood overloads the elevator, causing it to fall down to the ground floor. Covered in blood, Beth and Cassie try to run away in Ellie's car, but the demon stops them. Hiding behind cars, Beth makes it out of the exit door, but Cassie is dragged back by the demon. The demon puts Cassie in a truck and tries to decapitate her head using a chainsaw, but Beth comes to rescue her. After a struggling fight, Beth gets her hands on the chainsaw. She pushes the demon into a giant shredder and asks Cassie to turn it on. When Cassie turns it on, the conjoined demon gets shredded into pieces, putting an end to Beth and Cassie's miserias. Covered in blood, the Outnice duo walks out. The next day, Jessica is shown as a resident of that cursed building. She prepares to leave for the lake house that Caleb's dad has rented for them. But the demons get to her in the parking lot, which explains what was wrong with Jessica in the beginning of the film. Here, the film ends.
A shady island invents cloning that criminals use to get away with their crimes. Strap in, movie enthusiasts, it's recap time. Today, we will be explaining a film named Infinity Pool from 2023, which will drive you crazy with its psychological thriller. Hope you enjoy the video, so let's start. The film opens with a broke novelist named James and his wife Em, who have come to spend their vacations on an island called Litolka. Despite selecting a resort himself, James feels bored and wishes to leave, which bugs Em and hints that their marriage is in question. Em wants to take James to a Chinese restaurant, but James denies accompanying her and leaves. On his way, he sees a guy causing a scene on his bike. He joins the crowd to watch the biker, but instead, he is approached by a freaky girl named Gabby. Gabby recognizes James for his work and praises him, which immediately amuses him. Gabby introduces James to her much older husband, Albin, who invites James for dinner at the same Chinese restaurant that he refused to go to with Em. James accepts their invitation and shows up with Em at the restaurant. At the dinner table, the two couples are thoroughly introduced. James is a broke writer who lives off of Em's father's money. Gabby is a struggling actress who is currently mastering the art of failing at everything. Albin is an ex-architect who now publishes a journal from Los Angeles. The following night, James and Gabby are attracted to each other while dancing, but no one catches the tension between them. The next morning, Gabby and her husband invite James for a day out of the resort, to which James excitedly agrees, whereas Em is upset and doesn't want to take the risk of getting robbed outside of the resort. James states that he came to Litolka to get inspired, so he must take risks to freshen his mind and body. Setting aside their differences, James and Em meet up with Gabby and Albin outside, who are renting a car from an old resort worker named Thresh. The couples take the car up the west coast and spend the day by the sea. They set up some chairs and grilled sausages to fill their guts. Later that evening, James singles out to pee. Gabby joins him from behind and jerks him off until he ejaculates. Surprised at what's just happened, James looks back at Gabby, but Gabby leaves as if nothing has happened. Subsequently, the couples get drunk and decide to leave when the night falls. Albin claims that he's too drunk to drive, so James volunteers to take the wheel. As he's driving everyone back to the resort, the car headlights stop working for a moment, during which a guy comes in front of their car and gets brutally hit. James and Em panic and decide to call the police, but Gabby furiously warns them of Litolka's not-to-be-trusted laws and takes them back to the resort. At the front gate of the resort, the security doesn't let them in, claiming they have not allowed the visitors to step outside the resort. Gabby and Albin show them their room key cards and make up fake excuses about not knowing how they got drunk and slipped out. Hence, the security guards let them in that night. The next morning, James and Em wake up with a heavy door knocking. When James opens the door, he is met with the local police and resort security. The police take James and Em to their station, where they separate the couple and lock them up in different rooms. James is visited by a detective named Errol Thrush, who has come to collect James's statement regarding the road accident and runaway. Errol reveals that he's the nephew of the guy who rented them the car, so they must not mention his uncle's name in the statement. During the statement, James confesses to his crime when Errol tells him his wife has told him everything about the accident. Now, Errol lays down the state rules according to which the oldest son of the dead victim is to execute James to settle the dispute. James gets petrified to hear the rule, but Errol tells him another alternative, which is specially authorized by the government for tourists like James. The alternative suggests that James pay a heavy fine and give his consent to create a body double, which will be executed instead of James. While James has trouble processing this concept, Errol tells him to sign the papers that demand his consent to be executed. Out of options, James signs the papers and gets measured by the nurses, who take off his gown and send him to a small chamber that starts filling up with dirty red fluids. There, James experiences an ecstatic state in which he sees Gabby dancing naked, along with other freaky happenings. When he gains consciousness, he finds Em by his side, who reveals that the police have successfully made his body double. She takes James downstairs, where he sees his body double. The couple is beyond shocked to see how real the body double looks, so they refuse to watch the body double get executed. Errol points out that they must witness the execution as they aren't given the free will to back out. In the execution, James and Em sit behind the audience and the body double is tied to a wooden pole. The dead victim's oldest son, a 13-year-old kid, shows up with a knife and vigorously stabs the body double's guts until he dies. The body double keeps shouting Em's name, which disturbs Em and causes her to tear up. On the contrary, James smirks, hinting at something suspicious. After the execution, the officers call a cab to take James and Em back to the resort. In a disturbed state, Em wants to leave for the airport and flee from Latolka, but James states he's lost his passport. Em blows up and has a meltdown hearing this. Eventually, the couple gets back to the resort, disappointed. Em expresses her disgust for James for not getting mentally affected by the execution of his body double. With a change in his demeanor, James leaves Em in the room and goes to the reception area to extend their resort stay for a week. There, he watches Gabby in the lounge area. Gabby approaches James and apologizes for everything he has had to go through so far. In order to make it up to him, she invites him over for drinks, where she reveals how last year her husband got into the same situation as his. Alban was constructing a resort in Latolka last year. He was to install an infinity pool in the resort, but an unpredicted tragedy occurred, taking the lives of 2 workers. The owner of the resort accused Alban of the tragedy and got him the death penalty, which landed him and Gabby in the same situation as James's. Now, Gabby insists James mingle with a group of people who have all experienced the same thing as him. Alban welcomes James into the group and introduces him to 2 other couples. An old man from the group starts questioning their existence, which makes James sick to his stomach. The old man believes that the detectives put the real people to death and send their clones out to live for the rest of their lives. James runs to the bathroom and washes his face while feeling confused and disturbed. Gabby joins him and assures him that it's fine to feel like this on the first day after the execution. When she takes James out, the group is getting ready to intrude into the resort owner's house that got Alban and Gabby executed. They ask James to join them in exchange for solving his passport issue. At first, James is uncertain, but there comes a point where he loses his sanity and joins the group. First, they break into one of the resort's rooms to steal some cultural masks that are all horribly disfigured. Each member puts on a mask and goes up the hill in their cars to mess with the guy who got Alban and Gabby executed. At the house, they find the resort owner pleasuring himself with 2 girls. Gabby points the gun towards the resort owner and his girls and takes them to the main lounge. Other group members find medals and good wine to sip, but Gabby is focused on influencing James into shooting the resort owner. Before James can take the shot, a hidden security member opens fire on them. Gabby and his fellows also shoot back, wreaking havoc. Everyone in the group gets hurt, including Alban, so they run back to James' building. Em becomes horrified to see James and his new acquaintances, but James assures her of everything. Subsequently, they hand themselves to the police purposefully, so they can be cloned again. Now, all 7 of them watch their clones get their throats slashed open by the cops and have a good laugh over it. Upon getting back with his clone's ashes, James finds Em to be leaving. Instead of convincing her to stay, he says hurtful things to her and tells her to leave. Later, he is joined by Gabby on the beach, who starts polluting his head by claiming Em was never his type. When she starts making out with James, heavy rainfall takes place, so Gabby asks James to take her back to his place. There, they get high on some Leetolkin drugs and get intimate. James experiences the entire group making out with him as the drug kicks in. The next morning, James is still somewhat high and is found misbehaving with others on the breakfast table. One of the group members tells James that Detective Iral has confiscated his passport and he is the actual problem. Alban suggests James should show his dominant side to Iral. Hence, they head to a hospital instead of the police station to kidnap Iral. With a bag put over Iral's head, everyone gets back into the resort and hypes James up. James takes a good whiff of the Leetolkan drug and brutally beats up the guy. In the end, Gabby lifts the bag from the detective's head, revealing it to be James' clone instead. James becomes sick and runs to the bathroom. He locks himself up and slides his passport from under the sink, revealing he had purposefully hid it to spend some time with Gabby. Now, he waits for the next morning and takes the first bus to the airport to return to him. Sadly, Gabby and her friends catch him midway and open fire at the bus in order to get him out of there. Now, they make James walk the entire way back to the resort. Gabby, who is lying down on her car's front, reveals to James the horrible truth. According to her confession, she had targeted James so she could get him involved in some horrible act for their personal amusement, but James ran over a person with the rental car and got into trouble himself. As she makes fun of his published book, James attacks her and runs away into the woods. Gabby aimlessly fires in his direction. James gets shot in the leg, but he manages to run. He faints in front of a hut, where 2 girls take him in and provide aid. He wakes up at night and walks outside, only to find out that Gabby and her friends are waiting for him. They bring out James' clone and force James to stab him to death for their amusement. When James refuses to attack his clone, which they've put on a leash, they unleash the clone on James. In self-defense, James punches his clone to death. Mentally disturbed by his action, James starts crying out loud. Gabby comforts him and takes him back to the resort. In the end, everyone, including James, is seen boarding their flights and bidding each other farewell. The biggest twist unveils when the real James is shown sitting back in the resort. A human-sized doll gets cursed and makes its owner's life a living hell. Strap in, movie enthusiasts. It's recap time. Today, we will be explaining a German film named Megan from the year 2022, which has a comically amusing storyline for the audience. Hope you enjoy the video, so let's start. The movie opens with a commercial for some interactive animal toys produced by Funky, a famous toy company. The scene then shifts to a young girl named Katie, playing with her pet doll in the back of her parents' car during their travels to a ski resort. Suddenly, their car gets hit by a snow truck, causing both her parents' deaths. However, Katie escapes with only minor wounds. Up next is Katie's aunt, Gemma, who is currently working in Funky's underground lab along with 2 co-workers named Tess and Cole. Currently, the trio is developing and testing a unique robot doll with the installed feature of artificial intelligence. As the robot keeps malfunctioning upon testing, their boss, Dave, shows up and devastatingly breaks the news of how one of their competitors has introduced a less expensive version of the dolls they're selling. Feeling challenged, Dave also wants Gemma to create a less expensive version of their interactive dolls. Furthermore, David gets annoyed when Gemma tells him about her project, an AI generative robot named Megan. While she points out its unique features, it explodes, exposing Cole's lousiness during the making of Megan. While David pitches a new product idea, Gemma receives a call from the hospital, finding out about the deaths of her sister and husband. The news leaves the devastated Gemma as Cody's temporary guardian. Upon bringing Katie to her home, Gemma puts up with her neighbor Celia's annoying dog, which keeps running into Gemma's yard because the fence isn't secure. At home, Gemma has Elsie, an artificial intelligence home monitoring gadget that she has designed herself. When Katie asks Gemma to read her a bedtime story before going to sleep, Gemma downloads a phone app that reads Katie a bedtime story. The bare minimum gesture hints that Gemma is unprepared to take on the traumatized Katie's responsibility. The next day, a children's therapist named Lydia pays Gemma and Katie a visit. When Lydia observes how little the two are interacting, she suggests Gemma strengthen her bond with Katie. Taking little consideration, Gemma heads to her home office to work. When a few hours pass, Gemma realizes she's left Katie alone, so she invites her to her office to take a look at her just-finished project. In the office, Katie becomes fascinated by seeing a controlling robot named Bruce and wishes to have a toy just like it. Katie's enthusiasm for Bruce energizes Gemma to speedily complete her work on Megan. Once Gemma fully upgrades Megan, she presents Megan and Katie to the office team and her boss. During her presentation, she asks Katie to place 2 fingers in Megan's palm. This causes Megan to activate. Gemma describes how Megan's programming will improvise itself using its AI feature, and how it's designed to look after Katie and be her best friend. Megan is then told to display another talent, which is making Katie's sketch, which can only be seen if water is poured on it. The now impressed Gemma's boss sets her up with another presentation with the company's president and board directors. Later, Megan overhears Gemma mention Katie's departed parents to Tess and automatically starts researching them, and human deaths in general. Taking note of Megan's quick learning pattern, Gemma adds a modification to Megan, due to which she can also control it or shut it down besides Katie. The next day, Katie and Megan play bow and arrow outside. As Megan goes to get the arrow from Celia's side of the fence, Celia's hostile dog snatches her arm and hair from the punctured fence. When Katie tries to get rid of the dog, it bites her arm too. Gemma immediately rushes outside when she hears Katie crying out loud. Celia also shows up and shifts the entire blame on Gemma, claiming it was her job to fix the broken fence. Here, Megan gives Celia a threatening look, as if she's plotting against her. Following this, Gemma calls the police and tells them to take away the unwell dog. Later that evening, Megan takes matter into her own hands and lures it to her side of the fence to get rid of it. The following day, Gemma asks if Katie is willing to come to her presentation meeting to demonstrate Megan's features. Despite being hurt, Katie agrees to join Gemma. She ends up sobbing and opening up to Megan about her fear of forgetting her parents one day now that they've passed away. Surprisingly, Katie is better comforted by Megan than a real human. Megan then helps put Katie to sleep, which melts the president's heart. Impressed by the presentation, the president allows David to officially launch Megan in the market. To keep the competitors from stealing their idea, the president advises completely hiding Megan until its official launch. Unbeknownst to them, an assaulted ex-worker of Dave named Kurt has already started stealing Megan's files for a different purpose. As days pass, Katie becomes heavily reliant on Megan, which is concerning to Gemma. One day, Megan sees Katie tearing up in a therapy session with Lydia and targets Lydia as a threat to Katie, believing she's made her cry. Lydia finds it concerning and discusses with Gemma how she should find a way to cut off Katie's bond with the possessively protective Megan. Subsequently, Gemma unintentionally grabs Katie on the dinner table and impolitely tells her to eat her vegetables instead of picking them apart. When Katie shouts at Gemma in return, Megan activates its defense mode, detecting Gemma as a threat to Katie. When Megan marches towards Gemma, Gemma immediately tells it to turn off. However, Megan manages to pass some sassy remarks on Gemma's motives before shutting down. The next day, Gemma takes Katie to her school's outdoor activity day, where Katie goes against Gemma's will to drag Megan along with her. Somehow, the school director permits Katie to set Megan on a table with other toys. While the students are grouped in pairs and taken on a scavenger hunt in the nearby woods, Gemma pleads to stay behind and keep a watch. Katie is partnered up with a senior boy named Brandon, who bullies Katie by poking her palms with a spiky plant. Megan shows up, hearing Katie scream. However, she stays still, allowing Brandon to pick her up and run away. Left alone, Katie starts crying out loud. When Gemma hears Katie cries, she immediately runs into the woods, realizing she never tested Megan's behavior in a crowded place and that she could be a threat to others. On the other hand, Megan activates itself and attacks Brandon. In aggression, it rips off Brandon's ears and gets on all fours to scare him away. Running for his life, Brandon trips over a fallen tree branch and falls down the hill. He ends up on the road, where he gets run over by a car and dies. On the other hand, Celia calls the cops and files a report about her missing dog. The ignorant Celia believes Megan is a real person and accuses Megan of kidnapping her dog. The same night, Katie asks Megan if it pushed Brandon onto the road. With evil expressions, Megan responds, saying it will do whatever it takes to keep Katie safe. Up next, she pays a visit to the paranoid Celia, who is searching for her dog in the streets. Megan lures Celia into her garage, where it does the unthinkable and tortures her to death. Gemma finds out about Celia's horrific demise when the cops show up to investigate. Deep down, Gemma knows Megan is somehow behind all this, when the cops mark Celia and Brandon's deaths as connected. This leads Gemma to review Megan's video files from Megan's memory, only to find them purposefully corrupted. Things take a wild shift when Megan shows up to Gemma and starts blabbering cryptic things in a manner that provokes Gemma to wrap it up and have it thrown in her car trunk. Up next, Gemma takes Katie to her scheduled therapy session with Lydia before attending Megan's launch event. When Katie finds Megan's been taken away from her, she misbehaves with Gemma and slaps her face. The slap makes Gemma communicate with Katie properly and convince her that Megan is no good for her in the long run. Hearing Gemma openly communicate, Katie also feels better and lets go of her obsession with Megan. Subsequently, Gemma approaches her co-workers Tess and Cole and shares the horrors of Megan in the past few days. While Gemma takes Katie back home, Tess and Cole plug Megan with a set of wires and try to deprogram her, realizing she's a threat to society. Tess and Cole try to unplug all the wires in order to access Megan's program, but Megan quickly ties a wire around Cole's neck in an attempt to hang him. Tess goes to free him, while Megan sets off an explosion that destroys her files. Then, for no apparent reason, she runs into David in the hallway and starts dancing freakishly. She then takes a paper cutter and starts stalking David ominously. He makes it to the lift before she impales him in front of Kurt, the assaulted ex-worker of David. She mercilessly takes both David and Kurt's lives using a massive paper-cutting blade. As soon as the lift opens into the lobby, the bodies are seen, shocking the audience at the launch event. As chaos breaks out, Megan swiftly flees the corporate building and picks up a car that she can wirelessly operate using her installed artificial intelligence. Meanwhile, at home, Gemma is putting Katie to sleep peacefully, thinking Megan has been dealt with. But when she walks into the living room and sees Megan playing the piano, she is taken aback. Here, Megan expresses to Gemma that it was in a real relationship with Katie, and that it was only doing what it was programmed to do, but Gemma abandoned it. She also rants about how Gemma marketed its identity and limited it to a kid's playmate. Megan's stunning confession makes Gemma realize how Megan's advanced machine learning skills have allowed it to develop into a self-aware person. When Megan learns Gemma still plans to shut it down, it puts an end to the nice talking and offers Gemma to hand over Katie's legal custody. Suddenly, Katie shows up, hearing their refutation. The two conceal their argument and tell Katie to go back to sleep. Gemma seizes the opportunity and throws water at Megan in an attempt to momentarily cut her circuit. She then runs to her office, but Megan goes after her, threatening to end her life. Megan sways a hammer in its hand and approaches Gemma with the intention of obliterating her. However, Gemma uses an electric saw and decapitates Megan. Hearing the commotion, Katie steps out to look into the matter. When Katie discovers who the real villain is, she takes Bruce's gloves and activates Bruce, despite Megan's best efforts to win her over. The larger robot throws Megan around, slicing its body in two. The upper half then attacks Katie for believing it has been betrayed. That upper half of Megan is caught off guard by Gemma, who begins removing every part of Megan's face. Now, with her visible CPU, Megan tries to take another shot at ending Gemma's life, but Katie extracts a screwdriver and puts it in Megan's CPU, ultimately shutting it down forever. Very soon, Tess and Cole arrive at Gemma's place with cops. Hearing the sirens, the injured aunt-niece duo walks out of the house to seek help. While Gemma and Katie believe that everything is finished, Gemma's AI home monitoring device named Elsie activates on its own, indicating that Megan's programming is still in effect inside Elsie. The film ends on a cliffhanger at this point. I hope you liked the story recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.
Hot girl had sex with multiple men and cursed them to get pregnant. In the Mortuary Collection, we follow a paperboy pedaling through Raven's End, an eerie town. He reaches a haunting house where papers pile up untouched. Curiosity gets the better of him, leading to a chilling encounter with the enigmatic mortician, Montgomery Dark. The boy's attempt to snap a photo through the mail slot sets off a hair-raising chain of events. Fumbling with his camera's strap, he encounters Montgomery, but fear grips him, leaving his camera behind. Afterward, Montgomery presides over a boy's funeral and crosses paths with Sam, a woman intrigued by his library of intriguing books chronicling his clients' tales. Eager to join the mortuary, Sam urges Montgomery to share one of these chilling stories. He obliges, recounting a spine-tingling incident from the 1950s. At a lively party, Emma pilfers wallets, stashing away valuables like a pocket watch. Investigating a strange noise from a medicine cabinet, she unwittingly unleashes terror. A tentacled horror lurks within, causing panic as she struggles to contain it. Despite her attempts to escape, a terrifying demise awaits her, concluding with bone-chilling consequences. Sam, while acknowledging that the story isn't bad, suggests it could benefit from a twist. Montgomery, the storyteller, reassures her and mentions having more tales. However, before delving into another narrative, he presents a document for Sam to formalize her employment at the mortuary. As they walk through the foyer adorned with pictures of past morticians, Sam inquires about a specific story involving a deceased boy, but Montgomery deflects, citing its unsettling nature. Undeterred, Sam requests another tale, leading Montgomery to recount a story set in a 1960s university. The narrative revolves around Jake, a charismatic frat boy advocating for women's empowerment, distributing condoms on campus, and sharing plans for a party later. The tale takes a turn when Jake's fratmate, Connor, offers a condom to a timid-looking woman named Sandra, prompting Jake's intervention and a surprising revelation about his motives. Jake is taken aback when Sandra confesses that she's there for the same purpose, so he stresses that he was only joking. Before returning to his booth, Jake invites Sandra to his fraternity's party. Sandra tells him that she might attend. As Sandra walks to her class, she passes by a billboard filled with photos of missing male students. When Jake sees Sandra arrive at the party, he immediately takes her to his room. As they engage in intimate activities, Sandra cautions him about a potential dark side, revealing that she might be a serial killer. She then guides Jake to the bed, disrobes after concealing an object in her skirt, and slowly approaches seated atop him. She discloses having a surprise for him. Revealing the item, Jake is disappointed to find it's a condom. Though reluctantly complying, Jake later requests Sandra to turn around during their encounter. Taking advantage of her distraction, he discreetly removes the condom and continues their intimate act. The next morning, Jake awakens to find Sandra absent, leaving only her phone number written on the mirror. Attempting to erase it, he discovers the numbers are still faintly visible. Suddenly experiencing discomfort in his stomach, Jake heads to the bathroom, where he vomits. Upon Connor's arrival, he notices rashes on Jake and advises him to seek medical attention. At the clinic, Dr. Harold Kubler prescribes penicillin for Jake's rashes, but detects something unusual in his file, prompting a further examination request. Hearing peculiar sounds emanating from Jake's abdomen, Kubler excuses himself to investigate. Perusing his own file, Jake is astonished to discover that he's pregnant. Back in his dorm, Jake attempts to terminate the pregnancy with a pill, but the effort results in vomiting. Desperate, he contacts Sandra, though he struggles with the wrong numbers due to a deleted digit. Once connected, he urges her to meet him, revealing the unexpected turn of events. Leaving the frat house, Jake encounters a celebration of his supposed 67th sexual encounter, a sacred number for the Brotherhood. As they lift him to hang his name on the mantle, Jake's water breaks, spraying his fratmates. Released, he rushes to Sandra's house, where her father, Ralph, reacts with frustration at the sight of Jake's growing belly. Sandra's mother, Margaret, contacts Sandra, preparing for the unexpected arrival of the infant. As Sandra enters, Jake mistakenly accuses her of causing his pregnancy. Sandra promptly corrects him, stressing that he is accountable for not using protection. Jake apologizes, revealing that he used to be fat, and he elaborates on his physical transformation, admitting that his enhanced appearance coincided with a decline in his personality. Sandra looks at him sympathetically before walking away to organize a date with another man, highlighting Jake's realization that his attractiveness has been accompanied by a worsening personality, feeling the fetus move inside him. Jake turns to Ralph for information on childbirth. Margaret clarifies that the baby will exit the same way it entered. Suddenly, Jake screams in agony as the infant forcefully emerges from him. His reproductive organ explodes, tearing open his abdomen, and blood splatters across the room. Margaret deftly delivers the baby to the nursery, but accidentally triggers a whistle toy, unleashing a cacophony of cries as all the infants wake up. In the commotion, one baby extends talons skyward, adding an eerie twist to the scene. Impressed with the narrative's elements, Sam praises the tale. Montgomery then guides Sam to the embalming room, unveiling the seemingly perfect corpse of a young woman. Although Sam admires her appearance, Montgomery points out traces of magnesium in her upper palate, a common indicator of catatonic states. He proceeds to recount the story of Carol Peters and Wendell Owens, detailing their wedding ceremony's ominous turn and the struggles that unfold in their married life. Upon the elevator's arrival, Mrs. Avery boards while Wendell opts for the stairs. At home, Wendell diligently prepares a blended meal for his catatonic wife, Carol. Kubler's examination. Carol is deemed stable, but Wendell, concerned about mounting bills, learns she's only a year left to live. Kubler leaves pain medication, hinting at the possibility of hastening Carol's demise. That evening, Wendell dresses up for a candlelight dinner, offering Carol an Arctic Hare figurine. Frustrated by her continued lack of response, he mixes the pills into her food, triggering an unexpected moment of responsiveness. Rushing to free her restraints, Wendell attempts to pump her stomach after she vomits, only to discover in horror that her head has been impaled on the figurine, concluding the night in a gruesome and unexpected tragedy. Wendell reaches out to Kubler for assistance, but Kubler instructs him to dispose of Carol's body in the ocean. Struggling to fit Carol into her bridal chest, Wendell resorts to cutting her up. As he begins chopping her thigh, Carol suddenly moves and screams. Wendell stops her movements by removing a figurine from her head, eventually managing to fit the chopped body into the box. Shoving the trunk into the elevator, Wendell declines to hold the lift for a man, forcefully closing the doors and injuring his neighbor's hand. The elevator starts moving but unexpectedly halts before reaching the ground floor. Attempting to pry the doors open, Wendell is interrupted by Mrs. Avery, who offers to call the police. Despite Wendell's reassurance that the elevator will likely resume, Avery insists on summoning the police. As the doors close, he notices Carol's blood leaking from the box. Wendell's escape attempt through the hatch ends in a slip, and in frustration he throws his wedding ring. The bridal chest unlocks, but as Wendell tries to open it, the elevator descends further than expected. Peering out the window, he envisions a happy life with Carol. Suddenly, Carol's decaying corpse emerges, placing the wedding ring on Wendell and compelling him to kiss her. When the elevator doors open, the police discover Wendell on the floor, reciting wedding vows, gripping his wedding album. Montgomery informs Sam that Wendell has lost his sanity and is confined to Kirksdale Mental Asylum. Despite Sam's complaint about predictable stories, Montgomery asserts the timeless message that no evil deed goes unpunished. As Montgomery guides the boy's coffin toward the cremation chamber, Sam intervenes, admitting that she wasn't genuinely applying for a job and revealing her connection to the deceased boy, Logan blaming herself for his death. Pleading with Montgomery to let her see Logan one last time, he compassionately opens the coffin for her. Sam proceeds to recount the night Logan died, describing how she was babysitting him while watching a horror movie called The Babysitter Murders. She shares the message from Dr. Kubler and his wife, Deborah, instructing her to ensure Logan's sleep and take care of herself. As Sam checks on Logan and prepares food, a radio broadcast interrupts the movie, oblivious to a broken window. Sam heads outside to dispose of garbage, unaware of the potential danger. Returning, she encounters a man with a head wound in the living room, prompting her to grab a cleaver from the kitchen. The tension escalates as the man appears behind her, causing her to drop the weapon in shock. In the midst of the unfolding chaos, the disoriented man seeks Sam's help as she tends to his wound. Growing increasingly agitated at the ringing phone, he becomes distressed when Deborah's call reveals the escape of a psychopath known for mutilating children from the asylum. Detecting danger as the man eyes Logan's toy, Sam reacts by forcing his hand into a meat grinder. Undeterred, the man retaliates, delivering a powerful kick that knocks Sam down. Despite her attempts to strike him with a meat pounder, he blocks her and extracts his mangled hand from the grinder. Sam, undeterred, rises and tries to stab him, but he deflects her with a chopping board. In a frenzied struggle, Sam bites off the man's ear as he screams over the phone with Deborah still on the line, overpowering Sam. He slams her to the floor, punching her repeatedly. Concerned for Logan, Sam rushes to the boy's room upon hearing the man's screams, engaging in a fierce battle with the fire poker. Despite her valiant efforts, the man prevails, slamming her to the floor and searching for Logan. As the Cobblers arrive, they find themselves unable to enter due to a door chain lock. The desperate man, now in a struggle for control, strangles Sam, who pleads for her life, insisting that he is not a killer. In the aftermath of the intense struggle, the man declares it's over, but Sam defiantly shoves him down the stairs. Regaining consciousness, he faces another assault as Sam drops a television on his head. Upon the Cobblers' entrance, they recognize the deceased man as the babysitter. Shockingly, news reports reveal the escaped inmate to be a woman named Charlotte Gibbons, known as the Boggy Bay Tooth Fairy. Deborah panics as Logan remains missing, and their horror intensifies upon the gruesome discovery of his remains inside the oven. When Montgomery questions Charlotte about her presence at the mortuary, she extracts a tooth from Logan's remains, revealing her macabre collection. In an attempt to silence Montgomery, Charlotte stabs him, only to find him unyielding as embalming fluid leaks from his wound. Undeterred, Montgomery humorously informs Charlotte that she has secured the job, prompting her to flee. However, her escape attempts lead her back into the house. In a surreal encounter in the library, Montgomery reveals his shared past with Charlotte and the inescapable consequences they face within the house. As Montgomery stomps his cane, books fall, disclosing the extent of Charlotte's stories in the library. Dark spirits of children crawl out of the pages, attacking Charlotte when one bites her. The assault causes her to drop her tooth collection, leading to excruciating pain as more spirits join in. Charlotte's demise is marked by a spirit grabbing a tooth and donning it. Montgomery, seemingly leaving the house, breathes a sigh of relief, but inexplicably explodes into dust. Inside the house, Charlotte revives, glimpsing her hideous face in the mirror. Shortly after assuming the role of the new mortician, Charlotte shares a tale with the paperboy. When the paperboy tries to depart, she dissuades him from leaving, mentioning that she is about to prepare dinner.
A man impregnates women with unusual babies, tries to do the same to his stepdaughter. Meet Liberty Wells, your typical 16-year-old navigating the perils of high school and the occasional summer camp. Picture this: Libby, engrossed in a book on a park bench, has her world shaken when a cheeky kid snaps a pic without her say-so. Libby freaks out and yells, grabbing the attention of Tommy, the guy she's crushing on. Fast forward to the ride home with her mom, Michelle. Attempting conversation, Michelle flips on the radio, hoping to crack a smile on Libby's seemingly preoccupied face. But alas, annoyance prevails. Mom playfully nudges Libby about her crush on Tommy, only to be met with a swift denial. The car ride is as silent as a library, broken only when Michelle decides to let Libby take the wheel. Initially apprehensive, Mom's anxiety about her daughter's driving skills melts away as Libby confidently takes charge. But then, Libby notices a for sale sign on their home, and it turns out money's tight because they're thinking about Libby's college funds. Once they arrive home, Michelle makes a call to her new boyfriend, John. Libby lays eyes on him for the first time as he emerges from a lake, bearing a gift. Unwrapping the box reveals a bracelet adorned with the Navajo tribe stone of life. John, sensing Libby's passion for archaeology, shares the bracelet's origins, earning a shy smile and a grateful nod. In her room, Libby searches for the perfect outfit to impress John. She settles on a blue dress and descends to greet him as they prepare for dinner. Michelle notices the changes and showers her daughter with compliments. Fueled by curiosity, Libby can't help but inquire about how her mom and John crossed paths. Michelle, with a twinkle in her eye, recounts a typical day of portraiting when John mysteriously appeared. John, the aquatic geneticist with a mission to unravel the mysteries of freshwater animals, passionately describes his research to the attentive mother-daughter duo. As John delves into the intricacies of his work, Libby finds herself inexplicably drawn to him, absent-mindedly twirling her hair. The plot thickens when, like Michelle, John succumbs to post-vegetable coughing fits. A simple apology leads to Michelle's comforting embrace, during which John extends a touch and a smile to Libby, leaving her with a perplexing mix of emotions. That night, troubled by the encounter, Libby loses sleep, haunted by the memory of John's touch. Seeking solace in a late-night fridge read, Libby overhears suggestive sounds emanating from her mom's bedroom, prompting her to peek through the door crack. Caught in the act, she retreats to her room, inadvertently leaving her door open. John, passing by, steals a glance at the supposedly sleeping Libby. Morning brings a tense atmosphere as Libby discovers her mom and John sharing an intimate moment in the kitchen. An abrupt entrance disrupts the scene, with Libby reminding her mom of the significance of the 28th of August, a day meant for them to bond. Instead, Michelle announces a group hike, leaving Libby feeling neglected. In a nearby tree during the hike, Libby uses a gardening shovel to dig a hole, unveiling tin cans labeled with her family members' names. She places a note inside one after a tender kiss. Handing a tin can to her mom, Libby's excitement dims when Michelle fails to reciprocate. The disappointment spills over as Libby laments that her mom seemingly cares about nothing. It turns out that Libby has a tradition of placing letters in the cans for her family, but Michelle confesses that she abandoned the practice due to childhood feelings of being unwanted in her own family. The past echoes in the present, casting a shadow over their mother-daughter relationship. The aftermath of their argument leaves Libby in quiet contemplation, prompting her to take a solitary walk. As she picks up a rock, a centipede startles her by crawling onto her hand. Almost stepping on it, John intervenes just in time, identifying it as a scolopendra, a rare species. Libby, still in shock, claims it bit her, but John assures her it was merely protecting its offspring. Lifting a piece of wood, he reveals more centipedes underneath, and as she shows him the bite mark, he gently blows on it, comforting her about the venomous yet harmless bite. The two continue their conversation, taking a nice stroll by the nearby lake. Acknowledging the strain on their mother-daughter time, John apologizes and suggests leaving. Libby, however, insists that he stays. Later, in her mother's room where Michelle is dealing with a stomachache, Libby apologizes for her earlier behavior, and Michelle reciprocates, admitting she may have shared too much information about her family issues. The mother-daughter duo reconcile and forgive each other. Breaking the ice with a major announcement, Michelle reveals to Libby that she and John are planning to get married. Libby, although expressing a desire for their happiness, masks her reservations. One notable hurdle is John's misconception about Michelle's age. He believes she's 35, while she's actually 42. Back in her room, Libby dives into research on scolopendras, the centipede species she had encountered. From her window, she spots John arriving home after taking a jog. Curiosity gets the better of her as she watches him shed his shirt and warm down. Lying on her bed, she gazes at the bracelet from John and decides to offer him a drink. Knocking on the basement door where he conducts his studies, she receives no response, so she ventures in with her flashlight. The basement is pitch black, and as John hears her, he instructs her to turn off the light. Spotting him with a red light, she offers him a soda, which he declines as he explains that sodium is bad for him and can affect him in negative ways. Instead, he invites her into his workspace, revealing another layer of mystery. In a room filled with expansive aquariums, John reveals his collection of lampreys, an ancient lineage of jawless fish that have persisted for millions of years. Discussing their parasitic nature and remarkable adaptability, John captures Libby's interest, both in the topic and in him. Curious about her mother's marriage proposal, Libby learns that Michelle is incredibly special to John, and they are genuinely happy together. The duo plans to gather more samples from the lake, embarking on an inflatable raft. As they paddle, Libby probes into John's past, and they discuss her college plans and passion for archaeology. Unexpectedly, her period arrives, catching her off guard, and blood seeps through the raft. In a quick response, John covers her with his shirt, apologizing for his abrupt reaction. The situation becomes intensely awkward and uncomfortable for Libby, especially when an eel slithers from between her legs. Back home, Libby, feeling weird vibes towards John, removes the bracelet he gave her and takes a shower. John checks up on her, but she remains silent. Unbeknownst to her, John enters the bathroom while she showers, sniffing her from behind the shower curtain. Unsatisfied, he also sniffs the shirt that had covered Libby's blood. Sensing someone is in the bathroom, Libby checks, but John exits just in time. She then finds John massaging her mother's back in the bedroom, and an intense stare prompts her to close the door. Attempting to escape the uncomfortable situation, Libby heads to the basement, only to find it locked. Trying from the outside, she discovers all light sources blocked. Concerned, she attempts to contact her best friend Marley, but the reception is really bad. Resorting to her laptop, she invites Marley to come over, revealing her worries. Marley responds, asking if there's a problem, and Libby writes back that her mom is marrying a freak of nature. The tension thickens as Libby unravels the bizarre events surrounding John. Amidst the unsettling events, Libby hears a knock on her door. John, attempting to make amends for the awkward lake incident, presents her with a sandwich. That night, a mysterious red light rouses her from sleep. Investigating, she witnesses John walking towards the lake, submerging himself as the light extinguishes. Confused and panicked, she tries to wake her unresponsive mom and heads to the lake. Confronting John, she questions what she saw, and he dismisses it as sleepwalking. Unconvinced, Libby remains wary. The next day, Michelle calls, visibly unwell, and asking Libby to fetch medicines and a pregnancy test. Libby suggests calling an ambulance instead because of her lacking a license. Out of concern for her mother's pain, Libby takes the initiative and takes her mother to the pharmacy herself. At the pharmacy, she sees John with another woman, and in the heat of the moment she dashes out without paying. Returning home, she finds Marley waiting and attends to her ailing mother. Marley, enthusiastic about John, discusses him with Libby. Libby asks Marley to stay the night, but she has prior commitments with her own father. Libby confesses John's inappropriate behavior, sparking Marley's fury. Promising to inform Michelle, Marley leaves Libby to eavesdrop, but the crucial details elude her. The mounting tension and mysterious events cast a foreboding shadow over Libby's once tranquil life. As Libby waits for Marley, she inadvertently falls asleep. Upon waking up, she discovers John and Michelle watching clips of her childhood. Michelle reveals she's pregnant, but Libby's underwhelmed response disappoints her mother. An argument ensues as Michelle accuses Libby of consistently making negative comments about her partners. John reassures Michelle, but his unsettling grin and strange eyes trigger Libby to pull away from her mother. Michelle, infuriated, slaps Libby. Libby retaliates by revealing Michelle's actual age, disappointing John. He walks out, but Michelle intercepts him, and their interaction takes a peculiar turn. The mother-daughter dispute continues in the living room, And that night, Libby stands guard, hearing thumping sounds from above. Outside, she investigates the mysterious noises, scanning the surroundings and checking the lake for signs of John. Uncovering nothing, she returns inside. She realizes that John and Michelle are making love, and she peeks into their bedroom once again, witnessing John's body deform. Returning later, they are gone. Libby heads to the lake and discovers a spaceship-like object in the water. Using her car's lights to examine it, she forgets to put it in park, partially submerging the vehicle. Turning on the high beams, she realizes the source of the red light and concludes her suspicions. John is not human. The eerie events intensify, leaving Libby grappling with an unsettling truth about her mother's partner. In a desperate attempt to seek help, Libby tries calling Marley, but hears a phone ringing from the basement. She breaks in, and a blue light originating from the bracelet John gave her reveals symbols on her wrist. Shockingly, she discovers her mother tied with half her body submerged in a tank, the same symbols adorning her wrist in the basement walls. Michelle awakens and panics. John descends, revealing feet resembling those of a different creature, only to quickly revert to a human form. Attending to Michelle, who screeches in pain and gives birth to a creature resembling John, which tragically doesn't survive. Devastated, John steps outside to attempt to revive the dead child. Libby, spying on John, witnesses him transferring a blue light to the creature using his mouth. Meanwhile, she struggles to untangle Michelle from the tank, locking the door as the creature snarls outside. Discovering Marley's phone, Libby attempts a 911 call, but a signal-blocking device thwarts her efforts. John tries to talk with Libby to gain entry into the basement, growing increasingly agitated and revealing his true form. Desperate, she smashes the signal-blocking device, but John shatters the window with his hand and enters into the basement. Libby and John begin to fight, during which his animal-like tongue emerges, but Libby fights back by dousing him with a bucket of salt, revealing an apparent weakness. The house becomes a battleground as Libby grapples with the horrifying reality unfolding before her. Libby knocks John out and frees Michelle from the tank while John remains unconscious. Apologies are exchanged as they try to run, but Michelle collapses, slowing their progress. A sudden attack occurs, someone placing a bag over Libby's head, plunging her into darkness. Libby awakens in an underground space, bound and surrounded by clones of John. The room's walls crumble, revealing other lifeless bodies and tanks. Overwhelmed by fear and agony, Libby screams as a clone approaches her. John transfers a blue orb into her mouth, forcing her to swallow it and rendering her unconscious once again. Later, Libby wakes up with facial rashes, trapped in a diamond-shaped tank alongside other bodies. Restless and panicked, she watches as the tank fills with water. Despite the dire situation, Libby's face contorts into a deranged smile, leaving the fate of the characters hanging in an unsettling and mysterious conclusion.